Hello again. I have returned. Haven't really picked a location for filming yet, so I figured maybe we'd just stay with the plant friends, if that's okay with you for now. Probably will change in the future, because I don't love the chair arm just being here. But, you know, we'll figure it out for now. And we get my friends and my dying roses, which works for me. Anyway, this is kind of the spiritual successor to my two collabs that I did with Chaotic Witch Aunt, aka Frankie. There's one on my channel and one on hers. I'll link both in the description. But I wanted to expand a little bit more on deity work because I think that often people feel a little bit lost when they finally feel ready, but they don't really know what to do. And we touched on it a little bit in our videos together, our sort of views on deities and working with entities in general. But, you know, there's always that leap that the online community of the occult and witchcraft doesn't really address, which is that in-between stage. There's always before you do it and avoiding it and doing other things and like your basics, and then there's the actual doing, but there's no talk about the lead up. So I want to talk about the lead up into deity work. So say, all right, you have either felt called by a deity or you feel connected to one and you want to start working with them and you want to make the call first. How do you do it? Now, this is gonna vary based on if you've already worked with deities from that pantheon or not. Working with a new deity, regardless of if you've done deity work in the past or not, is always gonna be a bit of a challenging experience. You can guess what's coming, can't you? Research. Yeah, you know, your standard, gotta do your research, gotta learn about them. How much research and what kind of research you have to do is really gonna depend on if you've worked with that pantheon before, if you have encountered any of the cultural practices that would go along with it, it's gonna make a big difference. So let's say you're a Norse pagan, you've worked with Odin before, but you wanna start working with Freya. It's gonna really differ for this person versus someone who has never done anything with the Norse pantheon at all. So I'm gonna go with the more typical case, which is that you have not worked with that pantheon before, no gods, no spirits, no entities from that entire culture. Where do you start? So research is kind of obvious, but more specifically, I would say you should read the mythology, and you should read more than one version. And if you can, try to get academic readings on their mythology and try to see what scholars have said about it, because especially with the popular pantheons, we have scholars who have done the research to connect the relevant culture at the time to a modern understanding that would make sense of how they were viewed at that time. The more nuance you can get about a deity, the better it'll be. You really want to try to understand their actual personality and their actual traits versus just the sort of pop culture mythology that we get used to. We get used to very watered down versions, especially with people like Aphrodite. You get, she's the goddess of love. Okay, well, there's more to her than that. You know, we have the Trojan War and all the myths that are related to her. So learning as much as you can is going to be important. There's going to be a lot that goes into this, and unfortunately it's kind of a long process, but, you know, try to learn about the holidays that were celebrated, try to learn about the actual cultural traditions that were sort of outside of the religious stuff, how the gender roles in society worked, how general life worked, what life looked like for the average person of that culture at that time. It's going to be a lot, so try not to get overwhelmed and just take it piece by piece. Now, once you've done some studying of the culture and the mythology, get used to their symbols. Learn what kind of ways they appear to us in their mythologies, and start to look at how they appear to other practitioners. Of course, it's going to be different for everybody, but you can usually find some similarities. You know, the Morrigan is related with crows, same thing with Apollo. You know, there's lunar goddesses, there's solar deities, there's ones that are related to animals, to hunting, to deer, to wolves, dogs. Specifically black dogs for some deities, so like a regular dog versus a black dog may be a very different kind of sign. So try to learn the general ways that they often appear and the symbols that are associated with them. This can be plants, animals, specific imagery, sometimes planets, especially in the cases of Roman and Greek deities. So learning their symbols is going to help because you can start to identify what symbols may be showing up in the future, what may be showing up now, or for I would say a fair amount of people, not most, but you know, a good portion of people, especially for people who are going to see this, you may end up finding out that there are some signs that have been around you a long time. You know, things that have popped up recurring in your life, and you go, oh, they've been here like the whole time. Okay. I know that Frankie has had this experience. She talks about it on her platform and in various forms, that there are some that she's definitely realized, oh, you've been here like for years before I even started any of this. And they're like, yeah, no duh. This is also inevitably going to bring up the question, can I still work with them while I'm doing the research? Like before I'm done, quote unquote, because you're never really done, but before I'm at a comfortable position to start my like deep working and worship of them and with them, can I start doing stuff before I'm done? And the answer is yes. I would actually encourage it, because research into them can be a sign of worship. It can be a way of honoring them. So you can start to do things during that process, and it can also help you to develop that relationship from the get-go. You don't have to wait. You can set up a small altar for them, you can just carry a symbol for them, especially if you can start learning the areas that they rule over. Like if they are related to dogs, you could volunteer at an animal shelter as an act of devotion while you are still learning about them. And if you want to petition them to help you with your spell work, you can start doing that, but I might actually hold that part off until later. But general, just honoring and worship is going to be part of that early stage process, and the learning itself, I'll reiterate one more time, the learning about them in general can be a worship or devotion style thing that you can do for them. When you're comfortable with the amount of research that you've done on them and you really want to get into the work and the worship, this is when it's going to really just be a totally personal thing. It's going to be individual for every single person. It's not going to look the same for everybody. Your typical ways, though, are usually statues and candles. I mean, those are just sort of your typicals, and that's what I do. I have a sort of a mix of things. So I have jewelry. I like wearing jewelry for my deities. I think it's a really nice way to just carry them with me as a little subtle touch. They don't even have to be pieces of jewelry that show. I have necklaces that I wear that will just slip under my shirt, and so it won't be totally visible. Especially in the winter, a lot of times it's just gonna be covered up by a jacket or a scarf anyway, but I wear it for me and for them, not for the world to see. You know, it's not meant to be a showy thing. I also have like this little brooch. I'll show a little video of it here, but I have this little brooch that my former roommate gave me for Freya, which I think is rad. I really love it. I think it's so much fun. So I have jewelry, and I have statues, and I have candles. Candles are sort of my usual. If I'm trying to get their attention, if I just want to honor them, it's a sacrifice of materials to be burning it. So for me, that's part of it. This is sort of my offerings. Sometimes I'll burn herbs. And I always try to do this in front of their statue. It's just supposed to represent, this is the place on my altar that is for you. This is your little area. It's almost like their room, or like a desk in an office. You know, this is Freya's desk. So I do things for Freya here at Freya's desk. I bring things to her here. And that's just sort of how I think of it personally, but everyone's a little different. Some people just straight up have a full-on altar for each deity if they have enough room for it. So this could be my Freya altar, this could be my Odin altar, and they could be totally separate places for each of them, just depending on, you know, your resources. This could even just be, I really like bookshelves if you're not using candles, so that each shelf could be its own little altar space. So, you know, the top shelf could be for this one, the middle shelf could be for this one, bottom shelf could be for this one. You know, you could have like little travel altar versions for each of them, if that's what you want to do. Really play around. It's gonna just depend on your needs and your wants and your style. As for the specifics of deity work itself, I'm not really gonna get into that so much, because that really will depend on your practice, on the pantheon. I can't really speak to it broadly because it varies so wildly for everyone, every pantheon, even every single deity. You know, hopefully you will have found a way to start doing workings and worship for each specific deity or the specific pantheons from your research. So yeah, it's more just an overview type of situation of getting into it, not feeling scared. I want to really push people to understand that our cautions in my previous video about whether or not deity work is for beginners is more about wanting to make sure that you can identify, which is part of that research process, to be able to identify their symbols, what other deities might be related to those symbols. You know, the Morrigan and Apollo both have crows. If you're getting a lot of crows as a symbol, how do you know which one it might be, or if it might be another thing, you know, another deity, another entity? doing your research to be able to get confirmations in other ways is part of that process. So that's why the research, in part, is so important, and I'll always stress it. At this point, it's expected. I think it would be more shocking if I didn't tell you to research in a video, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, that's all I got for you guys this week. It's pretty simple. As a note, I just want to add, to all the people who were giving me comments asking if I was okay because I had a band-aid on my cheek last video, I'm okay. I just had a little cut. It's all gone now, so I'm all good. You know, moving, you end up with a couple nicks sometimes. But thank you guys for being so thoughtful. It was really nice to see that you guys cared and wanted to make sure I was okay. I am fine. It's just a little cut. We just don't have little band-aids in the house. We're also fairly moved in. There's only a couple empty boxes left to throw in the trash, so hopefully we'll be able to get decorating and get me a nice space for recording very soon. And speaking just sort of generally as altars, as a note, I have a Patreon and I made a money altar recently, and if you want to learn more about what is specifically on the altar and sort of how I set it up and why I set it up the way I did, I have a little post about that on Patreon. If you want to get early videos and some extra special content, like the explanation of the money altar sometimes, I have a Patreon. It's pretty cool. If you want to see more of me, I'm on Instagram, Twitter, all that fun stuff. I have a Discord server. I hang out there pretty awesome. I have a Discord server. My mod team is pretty awesome, and I hang out there pretty often, you know, if I'm not working or in class. I also co-host a podcast called Occultism with a Side of Salt with my two friends Georgina and Temperance, so if you want to give that a listen, that also comes out weekly and we have fun like video versions and patron specials for the holidays. Yeah, so it's all fun stuff, and I'll catch you guys later, so see you next time, and blessed be!